Let's get into our very first conversation of the day. That's not the first conversation, that's by the way, but let's know what you think. We're taking a look at the big screen this morning. A lot of us love to see our movies. Some sleep while doing it, but largely it's some form of winding down, spending time with loved ones. But there's a whole industry behind that. And for an industry as big as that, regulation is key. So this morning, we're taking a deep dive into what happens behind the scenes, and pun intended here. We have joining us on the show the Director General of the National Film and Video Censors Board, Dr. Shaibu Hussaini. He's live in our Abuja studio. Good morning, Dr. Hussaini. Welcome to the Morning Brief.
Good morning. The pleasure is mine. I'm happy to be here.
Absolutely. Well, the roles of the NFVCB is quite broad and it's clearly stated. One of them regulates, prescribes safety precautions to be observed in licensed premises. It's also give ratings to movies and decide which is good for the audience and what rating it should get. And the list goes on and on. In fact, it also prescribes that you can carry out any function that relates to what is prescribed in the Act. But I'd like to start from what has been making the rounds, a statement you made in Enugu, and it essentially blew up. We've also talked about it on the show, and we thought it's important to bring you to speak to that. And it concerns money ritual, smoking prohibition in Nigerian movies. This was an event that was against smoking, I understand, by Kappa. And you made some comments about the act, or particularly the regulation, and how it prohibits money ritual killing, tobacco products, nicotine product promotion, glamorization, display movies, musical videos, and skits. It's a regulation. So I'd like you to speak to that. Does that mean anybody who's going to shoot any movie must not include that? Because prohibiting means a banning of sorts. What exactly does that regulation say, which should be gazetted in the coming days?
All right. Thank you so much for having me in your studios to at least make some clarifications. We had an event in Enugu, and the event was, our campaign to get the filmmakers buy-in to the fact that we are aligning globally to the campaign for a smoke-free society. And we believe that as people who shape what people see and begin to imitate, that we should take some responsibilities as filmmakers, as media workers, to see how we can support the global effort to have a healthy screen and indeed a smoke-free screen. And I can't remember where I mentioned at that conference that we were banning smoking scenes and ritual scenes in movies. The implication of that headline that I saw upon arrival in Abuja is the fact that any film with smoking scene does not work. But that's not what the regulation says. There are films that require that you need to depict smoking for the narrative, for you to be able to tell the narrative. I mean, how can you have a club scene and there will be no smoking? But globally, there are efforts to find creative ways of doing all that. Our concern is not really about, and then the regulation says that if you have to depict smoking and if you have to depict any other thing in your film, there must be a warning. And that's global. There must be a warning on the screen saying that those who in these photos are just imitating life, and that smokers are liable to die young. You must have that required health warning as prescribed by the Federal Ministry of Health. Don't forget that we have in place the National Tobacco Control Act in place 2019. And the act just says that because there is a total ban on advertising on television and other media, they are going behind now to use films as an avenue to promote and glamorize smoking, ritual killing, and all that. So we are more concerned about, the promotion of smoking in films and the glamorization. We didn't ban. I'm an artist, I'm a performer, and I know that I've taken part in places and films where I'm giving where I'm given a role where I have to smoke. And what is happening globally now is that even actors internationally, they use dummy cigarettes. They use cigarettes, they call it fake props, to depict those characters. And that's because of the global concern about how, we depict, how we glamorize and promote smoking that has been banned totally abroad. So I didn't use the word ban smoking scenes. How can you
If I
ban a
could
smoke?
comment,
You mean
Dr.
that in a
Oseni,
film?
I know that you've also had to put something out on your social media to clarify that. But help us understand the regulation of 2004, I believe. It says prohibit. And from my English knowledge,
2024 is
2024 rather. From my knowledge of English, prohibit means forbidden, banned. So if the regulation says it's for the prohibition of ritual killing, smoking, glamorization in movies, skits, and the rest, the word is prohibit and it means ban. So what exactly is the law, the regulation then trying to say? Because when you hear prohibit, what comes to mind is ban, and you actually use those words as well.
That's how they act. That's how the regulation is coined. But as a regulator, what we do as a regulator, our responsibility is to ensure that if you make such kind of films, what we do is to classify the film. So if you smoke in your film and you need to have those warnings, those required head warnings, we will give you the rating that somebody under 18 cannot see.
Right.
Even in Hollywood, they resolve by themselves to ensure that films that are like youth-related films, they don't indulge in smoking in the films. We're not banning like smoking scenes in films. That's the headline that was everywhere. We're not banning smoking scenes in film. We are in the board, we have artists, we have people who are performers. They know that there are some necessary scenes that are necessary to depict smoking for historical accuracy, for educational purpose, and to portray negative lifestyle. We know that one for sure. But we are saying that going forward with this regulation, you need to put a warning either at the beginning of the film, during the scene, especially if it's a scene where there's heavy smoking, we need to do that. And then the other thing that we don't want to see in the film, but even if you do it, we will just classify it and ensure that nobody sees it, is this open advertising of tobacco in our films. For instance, somebody is doing a movie, and then there's a young lady, and we're told in the narrative that the young lady is a year one student in the university. So she should be about 17, 18. The lady comes back home, she's jilted by her boyfriend. In the film, the filmmaker is not so responsible to know that there are other ways you can depict getting out of depression. But this filmmaker, and I've seen a film like this even before I became executive director of the Census Board, the lady comes home, picks up a pack of cigarettes, shows us the brand that she wants to take, picks about 12 sticks, and they show us all the 12 as she's puffing. And then on the tray, there's about 7 sticks she has taken previously, just because she wants to get out of depression. I mean, that's glamorization of tobacco. That's what we're talking about. But we are not even going to say, okay, don't depict that. We're just looking for them to be a bit responsible in what they do. We are concerned about the future of the young ones who watch this content and think that the only way to get out of depression is to smoke.
Okay, let's take it further.
So we give it the right rating that it deserves.
All right, let's do a bit of a citation of how this is framed. It's an act to, among other things, establish the National Film Video Censors Board to regulate the censorship and public exhibition of films and video works and matters connected therewith. I read it through to ask the question about what's your team or agencies doing to regulate some of the things we see, especially on the social media, because this is public exhibition, if you will, not necessarily a cinema, but this is out there in the public. And it's been a challenge for some of these unregulated spaces, even the financial spaces like the cryptocurrency. So what efforts are you making, given the exposure? Because there are age brackets. They may not necessarily put all those indicators that you talked about maybe when it's showing on TV and cinemas, but this time it's open space. What are you doing?
Okay, upon my assumption of office in March, I started some engagement. I started a series of engagements with the online platform owners, especially those who just make their films and then go online, and skit makers who just go online. And our engagement have gotten to a point where if you don't classify your content, you can't upload them on those platforms. So we are going into a regime of regulating content on online platform. And what I assured stakeholders when I took over was that we have gone past the era of censorship. We are now in the era of classification. Bring your film, let's look at it, and then let's give it the rating that it deserves. The burden that places on us as an agency is that we need to do more. And in fact, I started from day one of my assumption of office to ensure that we enhance our media literacy drive. Because once you have an educated viewing public, they know that if they see our rating, like G, they say that it's for general viewing. If they see 18, they know that it is for only somebody who is from 18 above and all that. So we have agreed with the platform owners, that look, if anybody wants to upload the content there, then you must have a classification. You must have a classification. And the other thing that we're doing, engaging with stakeholders, because we just had one in Enugu, and we are meeting the stakeholders because this thing is a matter of responsibility, taking responsibility. You don't just because there's freedom of creation, you don't just put a work of art, there, and you know that this thing is very injurious, this thing is something that somebody can pick up, and there's no education, there's no enlightenment, there's no repercussion for somebody who does that. I just saw one recently. A guy sent his 7-year-old child to go and buy him cigarettes from a kiosk owner. And he said, tell the kiosk owner to light the cigarette for me. The kiosk owner did lit the cigarette. And by the time he was coming back, he now went to a corner and dragged the cigarette. A 7-year-old child in a movie, just because you want to make fun. And after dragging, he just came out and he now called him, Ben, where are you? He said, I'm coming. And by the time he came back, the guy saw that he had dragged it to a point where you say, from here to here, this thing has reduced. And the guy said, okay, let's go and meet the man. The funny thing all about that skit. It was when he was chasing the boy and he fell down on the ground. That's the end of the skit. What is the story? Why are you teaching with those kind of skits? So we have engaged from TikTok to Netflix to YouTube. We have engaged. I was in Lagos recently and I had a forum with them. And I said, look, we must classify those contents for the sake of our viewing public. Some of them are not so literate to know that. I was sitting down one day and my daughter opened up an account, a YouTube account. And she was watching YouTube. And then she saw a content. I also saw the content and I felt that, this content is okay for her. But in the middle of the content, young people were dragging what they call shisha or something. And she said, Daddy, what are they doing there? There was something she said, and I said, no, this is wrong. And then we got it off. And then we now got to that, we now blocked that particular channel. So I even told the platform owners that we at the Censors Board must have a deck where we must report contents that we consider not fit for people to watch. And they have agreed to comply.
So just a quick follow-up, how much of compliance do they do? Because I know that in the Act it says that for any person to distribute or exhibit a film or video work, it has to be registered with the board. How much of compliance have you seen in that direction, especially for content creators?
Okay, we are going into a regime of extending our net, so to speak, our censorship or classification net, to include skit makers and to include music videos. So, but we are building up the infrastructure to contain that. And we are going to have an announcement as soon as we get this regulation gazetted. We are going to have an announcement to say that from this time, you cannot put up a film online anywhere without classification by the National Film and Video Censors. But you know, the time we are is the time when you really need to engage with the stakeholders so that they can have a buy-in. That was why I have been going from forum to forum, and I'm going to have another one in the north and another one in the southwest so that we can engage them. This thing calls for a lot of responsibility on our part as filmmakers. I didn't come to the board to begin to drag stakeholders to court or to begin to prosecute stakeholders. I came to the board so that we can together see how we can build a healthy screen, and together we can build an industry where our products will speak for us. In fact, what they don't know is that some of these their content limit the kind of revenue that they get, because there are some territories where they don't watch our content because they will you open it and they'll say this content cannot be seen in this territory because of this and that. So why do you want to make a film, that have, things that people don't want to see? I mean, this is a country where people are still making, although this one is a personal observation. How do you make a film where you bring a young lady into the room? You were supposed to stay with a young lady, and then you now drug her. The next thing, you cut off her head, and then dollars start coming out of her head. Where does that one happen? What are you trying to tell somebody who is watching? You are telling the young person who is watching that it's possible to actually go get someone, cut the person's head, and then money will just start coming out. I mean, and the thing about most of what they show is that the consequences is not as much as what they do. For instance, somebody has killed over 7 people and then made a lot of money, becomes a community leader, and then what you have as consequence at the end is that the man gets mad at the end and is running everywhere and is eating from the dustbin, and then you say, "To God be the glory." What kind of consequences is that? So there's a lot that is happening, but we are going into that regime where we will spread our net and ensure that we classify 5 films that go online, and we also classify films, content such as music videos as well as skits. The law gives us that power.
Well, for those who align with the board, they would say that, this is in the right direction, because what you give expression to, even though it's in a form of condemnation, sort of gives oxygen to that, that attitude to life or culture or whatever the case may be. But the reservation that they have at the same time is that, look, this is not the first time that the NFVCB is placing a ban or a restriction or a prohibition on such content. That has been done earlier on, perhaps in the early 2000s, when there was a big concern of increasing ritual content in Nigerian films and Nollywood movies, and that this will soon thin out because it's just the NFVCB blowing hot, and there wouldn't be follow-up. What would you say to that?
There will be follow-up. I mean, it's a policy, it's a regulation, so there will be follow-up. It will not thin out, we will not stop. The thing is that you can do a ritual scene that does not involve, I mean, if a film demands that, okay, if you are doing a film on Yemoja, for instance, and then you have the normal rite of passage and all that, you do all those stuff that they do and all that. But what we are concerned about is this thing about ritual killing and money ritual. It's dragging a lot of our young ones. We are telling you to be responsible when you are depicting these things. I saw some people on television recently, I think on channels also, some people that were caught, selling body parts. And how much are they selling those body? It's because of the impression that once you kill someone, you can be able to make money. So this regulation has come to stay, especially as per ritual killing and the rest. So it has come to stay. The only thing that we can permit ritual killing for is if it is for historical accuracy. Like you are doing a documentary or you are doing something and you refer to the past, and then you said, oh, something like this happened. It's for historical accuracy. Otherwise, I don't see why we should be showing those kind of things, images and all that for the young ones. That's why they are thinking that it's easy to make money. You know, so we are going to be, it's not going to thin out. I can promise you that. Even if I'm not in office after my tenure, it's going to continue because it's a regulation, it's a policy. So it's not going to thin out at all. And this is not about how much money we are going to make from classification. It's about the future of our young ones. It's about the future of our viewing, of our teens that are coming up. I have children, I have people who watch and they imitate what they see. Research has shown that what they see, they try to act out. And we must make sure that we have a healthy screen. That's where I'm going, really. I'm not there to ban. There's nothing like banning. I didn't say ban smoking scenes because that's what is causing the controversy and public alarm. A movie can have a smoking scene, no doubt. But if you must have a smoking scene, there must be a warning, health warning as required by the Federal Ministry of Health on the scene where that smoking is taking place, and then before the film and at the end of the film. I mean, there are Hollywood films that we see. They put the warning sign there permanently on the screen. Violence, nudity, strong language and all that. So why are we not doing it here?
And it is the expectation that, we won't have to ask you this maybe after your tenure as the DG of the board. But let me quickly follow up on what you said about expanding your regulation to other content providers, particularly music videos, that show online and, on other social media platforms, especially YouTube. I wonder if it has come to the notice of the board certain music videos by artists that feature them wearing, robes or of priests in the Christian faith, or depicting, conduct in the mosques of the Muslim faith that often draw the ire of practitioners of that faith. Some in recent times, got a lot of people talking on social media. What's the response of the board to this in terms of regulation? You say that you're expanding your regulation to include all of those. Will the board be going after such content that is seen as offensive to the practitioners of both faiths?
Certainly we will do that. In fact, we have received a number of complaints. I got one on assumption of office from a religious sect. They wrote me a letter informing me that there's a movie that is being done that is just trying to put down their faith. We carried out an investigation. We saw the promo. We quickly wrote to the filmmaker to ensure that movie does not see the light of the day. There's another one we were even reaching from the United States. It's a religious sect, a movement, and all that. But you see, and we got very quickly to the platform providers, and then we told them to bring down the content, that the content is injurious to that sect, and then they did that. So we are going to follow that. We are going to be strong on that. We are going to enhance our monitoring capacity. I mean, presently we have 6 zonal offices and 26 state centers, and we are planning to expand those centers so that we can be able to monitor, so that we can be able to monitor those contents and just call the attention of the platform owners and then bring it down. But it still boils down to the issue of responsibility. I mean, I have written and I'm asking for a meeting actually with the music video producers. We need to sit down and talk. Some of those films really do not need all those trying to maybe divide the country, try to abuse religious sensibilities and the rest. You can make your films very decently and you can make your music videos very decently, and then you do. But of course, they will now say that we are moral police, but we are not the moral. This is not about being a moral police,
right?
But this is about getting them to be slightly responsible from what they see. But again, when we get to that regime, we will classify the content according to the rating. And the thing about classification is that if you get a very high classification, your movie will be limited, even in cinemas, even online. It will be limited, especially for people who know about our classification symbols.
Now, the question as well is how much of Well, I say, resources do you have at your disposal, from the technology to the people? What we have now, we have streaming platforms across board. How much of censorship do they get? Because Nigerians sit here and they're accessing thousands of movies, and I doubt if the board has even gone through 10% of those movies that Nigerians have access to be able to say, okay, this should be rated this way, regardless of where it's coming from. You know, it's one thing to be rated where it was produced, another thing to be rated here in Nigeria, where we have our own values and our laws. So I'm curious, really, because there's a lot of work for you to do. Netflix, Prime, Hulu, Apple, all of them is quite a lot. So I don't know if you really have the capability to go through all of that. And people are also asking on the flip side, this is sort of double-edged. When you say that there will be regulation for skits, does it mean for everybody who puts out any video online, even people who just, turn on their ring light, as they always say, turn a selfie on and do a video and put it online, they have to submit the the video rather, sometimes 60 seconds, 30 seconds, for some sort of rating? Is that what it means as well? I know there are two questions, double-edged.
Oh, no.
But Dr. Seni, you understand?
Yes. I will answer those ones, but I will answer that one quickly. But I like this last question that you asked. We are in the board. If you are having if you have a content that is 0 to 5 minutes and it's fiction, and it's dramatized, you have actors, you have you have characters, you have a set, you have costumes, and you use everything that you use to realize a skit, you will have to classify that skit. If it is the one that I just do, maybe I just do on a personal level, I have a ring light and I just do for a few seconds. But it's saying that if you have 0 to 5 minutes, 5 minutes to 40 minutes, which is the duration for a short film, and then 40 minutes above, which is the duration, you have to classify your film. So it's for dramatized contents that you got together, have characters, have costumes. You have a short. In fact, it's a short content. That's what we call it, but they call it skit. Well, it's a short content. You have to classify it, and we are building a platform. That's why I said I just came into office in March, and I'm trying to see how we can accommodate everyone. And in fact, one of the things that we're doing with the support of the Honorable Minister is to move censorship from the analog stage that it is now to the digital stage. And I committed to them when I met these skit makers, especially those who are on YouTube. I told them that, look, if you submit your content by the time we roll out our digital platform, if you submit your content by 9 o'clock in the morning, since it's a short content, you get your classification by 12 o'clock. That's what I...
Oh dear. Well, we'll try to reconnect with Dr. Hosseini. And these are very important points to really clarify, because we know how big the skit industry is in Nigeria. There's also costs attached to getting the censoring, or to getting the ratings, by the way, depending on the duration. So will the skit makers be paying from time to time if you have to churn out maybe 10 contents in a week or thereabouts? It's important to get those clarifications. But as far as we've come, Dr. Shoaib Hussaini, DG of National Film and Video Censors Board, has been able to provide some clarity. Still expecting to get some more on the streaming platform, guys.